At this point, we're all just kind of holding our breath and thinking, is Carter Starocci going to be okay?
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily Penn State Nittany Lions podcast. I'm your host, Zach Seyko, and we are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. If you're not already, become an everydayer, subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts for the latest discussions around your favorite Penn State sports. Let me know in the comments what you think about Carter Starocci's injury, the potential of it. Also, the Penn State versus Edinboro dual meet, 55-0, a nice win on senior day, but at what cost? At what cost? It certainly was a big one, as Penn State, at least for the time being, does not know the status of Carter Starocci moving forward as he does secure the win. He gets the tech ball. He doesn't have to injury default here, but was not able to walk off the mat under his own power. Looked to like Cale Sanderson and another assistant coach had to help him off. And when I'm watching it back, watching it in real time and seeing it, I'm not that concerned. Now, there are some bad elements to this, but there are some good things that we should take away, as this is really the ultimate discussion here. Penn State won the way it should have won against Edinboro, but this is the debate of should Carter Starocci have even wrestled in today's match. So let's break it all down here. But I am not concerned about Carter Starocci's injury. I'm really not. But I do want to begin with the bad elements of it. Now, I'm not a doctor. I don't pretend to be a doctor. I don't play one on TV, but I guess for this podcast, for the sake of it, no. All kidding aside, it does look like a hyperextended knee. Now, I'm no expert. This seemed to be the conversation going around on X, formerly known as Twitter, that this was assumed that Carter Starocci, when he got his leg trapped, it was a simple scramble. There was nothing intentional. There was nothing malicious about this. Just simply got his right leg trapped. And when he tried to pull it through to circle back around and get better control, he ultimately got the leg trap, and that's how it happened. But he couldn't put much weight on it, couldn't put any weight on it, really, it seemed like. And this was not a quick injury timeout. It took some time. His leg simply got caught in a scramble. This really didn't look too bad. And again, going back to an important element here, it wasn't intentional. It wasn't malicious. So, but Carter Starocci did need the help of two coaches to get to the off of the mat. And he did finish with a 22-5 tech ball victory. He didn't have to injury default here and risk that historic winning streak. But the good parts of this, why I am not concerned about this, and why I think he'll be ready to go for the Big Ten tournament in 12 days, and why I think he'll be ready to go for the NCAA tournament as well. It's Carter Starocci. It's tough as nails, one of the best athletes of this generation, right? Purely across any sport. That is not a hot take to say that. That's just the honest truth about what Carter Starocci has accomplished. You're trying to go for a fourth national title, and if he comes back with the eligibility, possibly a fifth, you still have to win the fourth to even get to that fifth one, besides the point here. But it is Carter Starocci. He's going to work his tail off. He's going to grind through rehab. You're not going to keep him down from this. And Cale Sanderson seemed optimistic about it in the post-dual meet press conference in about a 30-second answer. And he says that Carter Starocci has wrestled hurt before. So that's kind of good news in a sense, is that Carter Starocci has already won 3 national titles. I'm not saying he was injured or banged up every single journey, but that he's dealt with this adversity before. He's going to be all right. So if he already has that in his tool belt, that he's wrestled hurt when it matters the most, it's not going to be any different this time around. And he does have 12 days to recover. It's not exactly 2 weeks, but it's pretty close to it. You have 12 days to rehab to the best of your abilities. You have an incredible athletics training staff. You have people that will work with you through the rehab, the doctors, the nutritionists, everything. Carter Starocci has all of the resources at his disposal to get back as close to 100%. So I'm eager to see hear what Cale Sanderson has to say in his next media availability to talk about this, because he'll certainly be asked about it again, since we're going to need an update. But Carter is going to work hard through the rehab to get back to the point. I don't think he'll be 100%, but the fact that Cale Sanderson admitted that, hey, he's already won national titles not being 100% is really all the news that we needed to hear. But the debate is, should Carter have even wrestled against Edinboro. Edinboro came into this one 2-11. This is a non-conference matchup, so not even Big Ten wrestling. The seasons, you're already the Big Ten regular season champ. As a team, what do you have to lose? There's so much to risk here. It other than the fact that it was senior day, how meaningful of a match was this? But it was senior day, right? You had Carter, you had Aaron Brooks, you had Bernie Truax, you have Greg Kirkley, Bo Bartlett. I know some of them have the eligibility. Carter, Bo, and Greg can come back for another season, but they're all seniors. Savor the moment because you don't know what's going to happen. The three of them could come back. The three of them could also be wrestling in their final dual meet in Rec Hall. You want to savor the moment. And I say yes to this. You absolutely wrestled in this dual meet. Now, I know I talked about it in the preview episode, simply playing devil's advocate, because I will be honest, I understand that side of the argument. I do, but I don't necessarily wholeheartedly agree with it either. I understand it because you are risking a lot. There are more consequences here wrestling against Edinboro in this case than there are not wrestling against them. But it's potentially for these wrestlers specifically, it was potentially the last Rec Hall dual meet. In Carter's case, you have an opportunity to extend the winning streak. It's a good tune-up opportunity too. You get to work out some kinks, work on the little things against an opponent that is aggressively trying to score points and beat you, even though that was not going to happen. Penn State was going to sweep the board, as we saw. But this could have also happened to anybody, let alone Carter. Could have happened, and knock on wood, I'm glad it didn't happen to anybody. I'm upset to see that it happened to Carter. But anytime you take the wrestling mat, anytime you take a football field, a basketball court, a baseball diamond, you are opening yourself up to a potential for a fluke injury. That's just the nature of it. So what are you supposed to do? Bench the entire lineup? Because this could have happened to Aaron. It could have happened to Levi. It could have happened to Braden. It could have happened to Tyler Kasak. Any of them open themselves up to that risk when they wrestle in a match. And so what are you supposed to do? Because, well, we already wrestled against Iowa. We already wrestled against Rutgers. So we don't need to do that. I mean, when does that end? When does that conversation, when is the bar met for that kind of standard? Yes, it's Edinboro, but you don't know with other circumstances, right? Why not apply that same thing to Iowa? What? Because it's better competition? Penn State and Cale Sanderson in a million years would never do that. I thought it was important to talk about in the preview to get that confirmation from Jeff, the voice of Penn State wrestling, to figure out that they were going to do just that. But overall, that's the point. I get the counter argument. I do. It's Edinboro. You already wrestled your important matches, but you can't just bench somebody out of the fear of injury in this case. Penn State defeated Edinboro 55-0 as expected. You had 6 tech falls, 3 pins. You had the 1 forfeit, right? So Mitchell Messenbrink's day was pretty easy. There's really nothing to analyze here. I'd be concerned if you didn't get bonus points in this dual meet. That's where the analysis would have been if you didn't get a tech fall or a pin in this case. So Mitchell Messenbrink, when you jogged out there to get your arm raised, but Penn State won the dual meet as they were expected to. I'll go through the results, right? I think it's important to go through the results at 125. Braden Davis won by a tech fall, 19-3. Aaron Nagel at 133 won by tech fall, 18-3. Bo Bartlett pinned his opponent. Tyler Kasak pinned his opponent. Levi Haynes pinned his opponent. 3 consecutive pins there. Mitchell Messenbrink wins by forfeit, so he breaks the pin streak there. Carter Starocci gets the tech fall, as we see. A little bit of consequence there, but still got the tech fall, 22-5. Bernie Truax with tech fall. Aaron Brooks with the tech fall. And Greg Kirkley with a pin. So this was important for the seniors, above all else, to have this moment one final time, even though it was a little easier. It's against a 2-11 Edinboro team, now 2-12. But this moment to really take it all in, enjoy what could be a final moment at Rec Hall in front of another sellout crowd. That's important to them. You would never expect any of these guys, even the younger wrestlers, Levi Haynes, Braden Davis, Tyler Kasak, to say, you know what, I have the postseason. Maybe I should take the day off. They would never do that. They do this for the love of the sport. That is why they are out there every single day practicing, and then for as many dual meets as possible. But there's also this side of the conversation as well. Penn State goes up against Edinboro, right? Edinboro and Penn State are on 2 different levels. Penn State's the number one program in the country. They've annihilated everybody else. Edinboro, 2-11, now 2-12, and not that competitive, and would have been shut out by a lot of other programs in the country too. What were the Iowa Hawkeyes up to? Well, they were just, casually wrestling the number 2 team in the country, the Oklahoma State Cowboys, who are probably, going to be very competitive in NCAAs. And you'll see a lot of Penn State versus Oklahoma State wrestlers in those individual matchups. And is Penn State essentially punning that final dual meet? What's the point of it too? The rest versus rust debate, because Penn State's taking the rest angle here. Iowa's certainly not, because you're going up against the number 2 team in the country for your final dual meet. And I see both sides of it. Iowa, in the case, they're also opening themselves up to it. You take a risk anytime you go onto the mat, anytime you go onto the, sports field, right? Anywhere, anytime you enter the arena. But Iowa, because they're going up against better competition, more aggressive competition, you're going to run into potential for injuries, fatigue, anything that's just unfortunate circumstances, right? You just can't predict these things. Like I said, who would have thought that this would have happened to Carter? It could have happened to anybody in this case. But Penn State taking the option to schedule Edinboro, who is miles behind the caliber of Oklahoma State. I don't know what everyone's going to say, Iowa Hawkeye fans specifically, that, Penn State is soft. They won't schedule anybody serious in their non-conference. And here's what I have to say to that. Penn State already has a lot of the best wrestlers in the country all in one place locally. What's the point of scheduling another powerhouse team to finish the season? Because you're already wrestling day in and day out, minute in and minute out, week in, week out. You're wrestling the best competition as it is in practice. So Penn State doesn't need to schedule an Oklahoma State, an NC State, because they're going to see them in the NCAAs. But when you have all this wrestling talent accumulated into one place, what's the point? You don't need to. So that's where they already wrestle top tier competition on a day-to-day basis. So that's what Penn State's doing in this case. But next up for the Nittany Lions, they have the Big Ten Championships. That is, at the time of this recording, 12 days away. They will wrestle on March 9th and March 10th. That is going to be held at College Park, Maryland. And Penn State caps off the season 12-0 in dual meets, 8-0 in Big Ten action, 55-0 score on Senior Day against Edinboro. And I am eager to hear from Coach Sanderson about how Carter's recovery is going. And he will definitely be asked about it. That will be the first question. If it's not, I'll be completely surprised in his next media availability. If you like this conversation and you want more of these conversations around your favorite Penn State sports teams, be sure to subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Let me know in the comments what you think about Carter's injury and how Penn State is shaping up to go into postseason action. Like this episode, share it with friends and family. And for more conversations around your favorite Penn State sports teams, keep it right here on Locked On Nittany Lions.